The supply chain has obviously been a little bit bogged up, for a lot of different reasons. I remember when that boat got stuck in the canal, in the Suez Canal. That was really interesting. So there's been a lot of conflating factors for why, materials for manufacturing have been delayed. And that places a significant burden on a startup who's trying to figure out their manufacturing process for the first time. So Tricia, what advice would you give to a team that's facing this sort of issue right now?
First and foremost, I think for the teams to realize it's going to take time. It's taking time for very large companies too. So to work that into their plans, both in the amount of resources they need and just the expectation of when they can get their product and manufacturing. And that's a tough thing. If you as an early stage company, a hardware company, you rely on these materials. We realize we're all globally intertwined, and the teams want to get customer market fit. They want to get out there. So a time is of the essence, but realizing it's going to take a little time and to be innovative and how am I actually going to keep this customer engaged while I'm waiting for a product? And we've seen it from teams in our portfolios that when they give a newsletter update or investor update, they're saying, hey, it's delayed. It's delayed by 3 months. It's delayed by another 5 months, but they're trying to take how can we keep the customers engaged? And I think at the early stage, looking at pricing strategy, is there a way that the teams can maybe have a little wiggle room with margin? I know that can be challenging. Or can the customer take on some of a higher price initially? So maybe there's some strategies around that. Also, diversifying vendors, not relying on a single source, but saying, okay, if we got a product, in Southeast Asia versus in the US, can we have different suppliers help us if something does happen, whether it's pandemic related or not? And then looking at both that centralized versus decentralized distribution. We really were relying on decentralized logistics, but that's becoming harder. So is there something that the startups can do in the US? And we're seeing, I think, a lot of companies coming through our e-team programs that are actually working with suppliers just locally. And they're seeing a real advantage of being close to the manufacturer, being close to the supplier. But I think there's opportunity to be disruptive in the disruption.
Just to piggyback on that a little bit, there was one team, I think they were called Intelligent Systems, and they had a major software component to their technology, which is all about measuring air quality, right? Air quality within buildings. And their initial thought was that they were going to be building all of their own sensors, which, they had the ability to do, but they started to run into issues with getting the components for their sensors. And basically they pivoted their software to be able to get off the shelf sensors. So that way now they can just get off the shelf sensors that are already available here in the US, rather than having to figure out that they basically eliminated that whole other piece of their supply chain.
That's really interesting. It goes back to looking at your business model canvas and what is the core activity that creates the value, the unique value that you deliver to your customers. And if it's not having a proprietary sensor, if you can use an off-the-shelf sensor, you should use an off-the-shelf one that's easy to get, right? Really thinking about where you need to spend your money and your time, in what activities, what components, to really create that unique value. If it's something that's not creating a ton of value and you have to wait a long time for it, that's something that's pretty easy to write off. So being really strategic. That's a great point.